Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and in this video we have an interesting Star Wars reveal from Louis Leterrier, who is a French director. He had recently revealed that he had actually pitched 2 Star Wars movie ideas to Lucasfilm. And if you aren't familiar with any of his other previous movies in the past and in the recent, you'll know just in a moment. In this video we are going to be taking a read from StarWarsNewsNet.com. I'll have their article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well. We're also going to be discussing if these movies, or these ideas much rather, are actually going to come to fruition, be actually officially announced, and what's going on with these ideas now. So as their article reads, Now You See Me and Fast X filmmaker Louis Leterrier was recently a guest on John Horowitz's latest podcast show, Watch Along, where the two of them did a live commentary on the Incredible Hulk movie all the way back from way back when, in 2008, a part of the MCU, which Leterrier directed. The podcast runner Horowitz had raised the topic of Star Wars to the director, asking if he'd ever be interested even working for or with Lucasfilm, and got a surprising answer. Apparently, Leterrier had pitched a TV show to Lucasfilm years ago about a lone wolf and a cub. Then he added on that he had actually pitched 2 ideas, one pre-A New Hope focused on Luke and Obi-Wan specifically, and another focused on Boba Fett, in his own words, saying that, in quote, "I had my dream Star Wars idea a long time ago. When I came to them and pitched it, we should do a Star Wars TV show conceived as a lone wolf and a cub. And they said, we don't know if that's a great idea." It was 2 things. I wanted to do the missing part between basically before A New Hope, when Obi-Wan takes Luke. I wanted to do that, but I was also very interested in the Boba Fett movie. Ending that quote right there. Great ideas. And it's unfortunate, I think, at the same idea that those are actually things that did happen and come to fruition when you think about it. He mentions having some type of Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker centered project. I know that the Obi-Wan Kenobi project over on Disney Plus, or the show much rather, isn't exactly like 110% focused on those 2 characters of Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan, but it does focus a bit on Obi-Wan, and well, yeah, Luke also pops up, little Luke. Having a little bit more on that and expanding more on that is a big idea that a lot of Star Wars fans, I think, would love to see, with a potential Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2, or even developing it into a movie of where they do more between these 2 characters of Luke and Obi-Wan. And then for another, he also mentions a Boba Fett movie. I think that we've all known that a Boba Fett movie is something that had been kind of in the works for quite some time, until they did develop it into the Book of Boba Fett Disney Plus show. That's also another side project that does happen. Before he mentions those 2 ideas though, he also mentions actually a Star Wars TV show. And I'm going to go on a limb and assume that this Star Wars TV show was something that he kind of thought of before the Star Wars TV show craze that we seem to be in the midst of as of right now. Not that that's a bad thing or anything, but by any means, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a great thing, but it sounds like he came up with the Star Wars TV show idea kind of when the Clone Wars or Star Wars Rebels were a thing. Like, there just wasn't very many Star Wars shows, and he came up with this idea of a lone wolf and a cub type of story scenario, and that sounds oddly familiar. Reminds me of The Bad Batch between Hunter and Omega. So while I'm not saying that it necessarily is that, it does ring the same bells and that same idea overall. It's unfortunate seeing that they went forward with all of these projects pretty much and didn't bring him on board for any of them though. Not in a sense of that they're like stealing his ideas. I think that these are all ideas that we've all kind of had: a Boba Fett movie, an Obi-Wan Kenobi project before, A New Hope, and this kind of lone wolf and a cub type of scenario, very similar to what the Last of Us game and show is. He then also goes on to say that he had no problem with the fact that Lucasfilm ended up developing those concepts and those projects with other people, despite the fact that they had passed on his first take. But of course, there are a lot of other details missing here. We assume that this happened around 2017, when Lucasfilm was taking pitches for Disney Plus shows, but at the time, the Obi-Wan Kenobi concept was already being worked on as a film, and the Boba Fett project was also getting to be a movie with James Mangold. James Mangold, at the beginning of this year at Star Wars Celebration, was officially announced to be directing his own Star Wars movie about the very beginning of the Jedi Order. So even then, at the end of the day, James Mangold had been way back when pitching ideas for Lucasfilm with this Boba Fett idea, this Boba Fett movie, and was still brought on at the end of the day, it seems. We'll just have to see his movie actually get off the ground. So I do wonder, and I keep my fingers crossed, that the same thing can happen for this director, Leterrier. Leterrier was, of course, the light on the specifics actually overall, just kind of popping it up. For instance, what was this overall lone wolf and cub idea, really? And as I had mentioned, I believe it to be very similar to what we got with the Bad Batch. Was that Obi-Wan Kenobi show and Luke kind of supposed to be the same thing of this lone wolf and a cub idea? Maybe, sorta. Maybe I'm kind of mixing around the two of what the Obi-Wan Kenobi show of this lone wolf and cub idea that he had with the Bad Batch. Either way, it seems that all of these projects did come to fruition. I just think it's a bit unfortunate that it happened without him. And it definitely sounds like it, but again, that had a life of its own with other creatives at the same time. Should they maybe have gone back to him once they actually decided to turn it into a Disney Plus project? Perhaps, but Deborah Chow also seemed like such a logical choice to direct the Obi-Wan Kenobi show at the same time, although I think that Leterrier, it's arguable, might have done a better idea just based off of his track record of directing some of the Fast and Furious movies and some of the Marvel projects. That isn't to, crap on Deborah Chow, she's an amazing director. But despite all of that, it's always interesting to hear about different creatives pitching ideas to Lucasfilm, especially when it happened way back when, and especially interesting to see that, well, those projects did come to fruition, and seeing what also almost got stuck and what landed elsewhere. Most recently, for instance, we got official confirmation from Guillermo del Toro, my apologies if I butchered that name, was actually quite far along in this Jabba the Hutt film, which David S. Goyer was scripting. Goyer had also begun development on a Dawn of the Jedi film even before James Mangold was, and actually officially announced that at the beginning of this year. This whole concept of a Jabba the Hutt movie at the same time as well isn't something that we've actually discussed quite yet here on the channel. I really didn't think it was worth talking about, but hey, I'll make a video on it, so stay on the lookout for that, as well as other types of Star Wars related news, leaks, rumors, theories, and breakdowns, all of by which we are covering and talking about here on the channel each and every day. All the more reason to grab that subscribe button and that notification bell if you haven't already. At the end of the day, as I kind of mentioned throughout this video, I just feel that it's a bit of a shame that Louis Leterrier wasn't ever actually officially brought on for a Star Wars movie, but at the same time, the guy has so much more going on for him. He's working in other big franchises like Marvel and the Fast and Furious trilogy, if that's ever going to end. But at the same time, I think that it would be amazing to see him come back to a Star Wars project someday. Maybe he could be the perfect fit for directing a potential Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 or a potential Book of Boba Fett Season 2. All this being said, guys, let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you guys are all thinking. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, this has been an official Star Wars. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.